So today we're going to be covering our nesting wreath with all sorts of greenery, twigs, flowers that we found just in the garden. So we've got some things that are evergreen and quite fluffy. We've got some twiggy things that will give some nice shape, but there's also buds on them. We've got some evergreen that will give us a good background and also quite a lot of shelter. So when the birds nest, they'll feel safe inside. And it will last until at least Easter, and further on than that, when some of the more fresh flowers will fade away, the birds will have nested, but you've still got a lovely framework, and the next time you really need to be doing anything with it will be towards the end of summer, when the birds have finished nesting, and then you could top it up with some autumn plants. But spring is lovely. You've got all the colours and the promise of things to come. We start off by building up a bit of a base layer. So I tend to use something that is quite thick and evergreen. So we've got some conifer here, we've got some holly, some ivy, and some spotted laurel, which has got rather a nice yellow fleck to it. The thing that's quite good to do is to get a variety, because different insects and birds and animals are attracted by different things, different food source, different colours, different structures of the plants. And when you're sort of thinking about wildlife in the garden, that's quite an important thing to remember. And it reflects really what the birds will be looking for to nest in the bushes and trees as they are now. This wreath is a lot easier to cover than a florist type wreath, which you'd need to do a lot of wiring. But this is because you've got the wood around the edge and the wiring as well. You've already got the framework in there. So when you're cutting the pieces to use, this is quite a nice size wreath. So you want to use something that's going to bush it out. So cut your pieces sort of that sort of length and just strip the bottom bits off so that you can poke it easily in. If it's a bit thick, you can just snip the end to make it a bit pointed, and it will stick in easier. Then you've got wires all around that are holding it onto a wire frame underneath, and the wood is winding round. So just find a little space and feed it in, and it just holds itself in. Don't worry if bits fall out, just pop them back in, because what will happen is you build it up, the other bits will twine around what you've already put in and actually hold it all together. Okay, so I think that's the end of our base layer. We've got some spaces, but I've left that particularly at the bottom because we've got the nesting hole here, and I want to perhaps build up some more twiggy bits around here so that it sort of protects the opening. Now we want to put a bit of some more accent greenery in there. I'm still sticking with some evergreen. I've got some nice spotted laurel here, which is a common shrub. Loads of gardens will have it. It's got a nice yellow fleck on it, so it means it is attractive to birds. They can see it in the dark. I'm not going to put this all the way round, but just in places so that you've got some variety in there. Cut your pieces the same way as you did with the conifer here. You just want to just trim it so that you've got a bit of stalk, which is long enough just to pop it in. If you leave a bit of leaf on there, that'll also anchor it in. But you don't have to be too specific at all. And you can pull it through from the other side if you want to just make it a bit firmer in. Because you've got the back here, so you've got plenty of room at the back to be able to just tweak it through and firm it up. As you go round, just keep picking it up, have a look, see where you think the spaces are, and just put them in where you think they'll look quite nice and natural and a bit balanced, so you haven't got everything all on one side. Okay, so I think that's probably enough with the spotted laurel, but I'm going to put some different shaped evergreen in there just to break up the fur underneath. So I've got some holly here, which is actually just starting to form its little flower buds that will form into the berries for next autumn. It's not a prickly one, which is nice. I'm quite happy now with the sort of basis of this. So I think now we need to start putting a bit more variety of shape, and we'll start to put some of the blossoms in. Perfect time to use cornice because it's just, you've got the lovely coloured stems which will have lasted through the winter, but just perfect time to cut them down now so that they'll grow up again for next winter. So it's an ideal to get in a bit of extra pruning at the same time. I'm just going to put them in so it gives it a bit of extra shape and also a bit more of a natural feel, which is what it would be like in the garden and in the hedges. So I've got some very nice twisted hazel, which, like the cornice, gives a bit of a sort of a twiggy effect. It's quite like being in the middle of a bush, and it gives a bit of shape. And we've got some leaf buds here. They will, although this is cut, they will still carry on and they will bud out a bit. The other thing that you can use, which I haven't got today but it's lovely, would be catkins, the hazel catkins. So I think we've got quite a nice sort of selection of little twiggy bits. We've got, then the birds of course can land on these, even the very fine bits. They can perch on there, which is perfect. I'm just going to use now a few more of the smaller bits to give it a bit of a detail. So we sort of got our structure. We start to put some smaller pieces in. And a general rule is do things in odd numbers. So if you're going to put things round, perhaps have 5, don't do 6 because it sort of splits, but a 5 looks a more natural look. Or 3s, as well as having the wreath around the edge, you've got the body of it as well, and that's wired, so you can pop things in there, especially the softer things. They just poke quite nicely into there. And as you've got all the pieces that you've put in already, you'll be able to have a little bit of a structure where you've got the stems of what you've put in already, so you can use that to hold things in as well. What I've also collected is some seed heads from plants and flowers that have gone over the winter. They will have lost most of their seeds, they've probably been eaten or seeded themselves, but they are for a bit of a structure. So because these are quite sort of, give a bit of an accent to it really, I think you can see that. Sort of pop them in where you think that they will almost pop out. It starts to give it a bit of interest there. And there again, there's the entrance in here. We've got little twigs that they can land on before they pop into the nest. So I'm just carrying on with putting some accents in. I've got some lovely pussy willow here, which is just the seed heads of willows, grow very wild and everywhere. This is onto the pretty bit now, where we've got some bits of blossom that are quite twiggy. This is a viburnum called Winter Sweet. There again, it's got a fantastic scent, which is lovely. I've also got some hellebores, variety of different colours, particularly nice for insects, but they're quite soft in the stem, so they're not going to last for ages. But bearing in mind it's Easter coming up, it's just lovely to make a nice, pretty Easter wreath for the weekend, and then just let them die back, and you've got enough in the rest of it that they will be fine. This is where your 5s and 3s come in quite well. So because you've only got a few, you perhaps want to make it a little bit even. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because you've got quite a framework of all the things that you've put in already, as well as using the structure of the wreath, you've also got the twigs and stems from the things you've put in. So you can just weave them in and out. So you see, we've got with the viburnum, we've got 5. It's starting to give it a bit of a focus then, and a bit of a pop of colour. Now the rest of what I've got is really quite soft, but so handle it quite gently and just weave it in and out of things. If they fall out, when you finish looking at it straight away, it doesn't matter. They're going to die back anyway. So you don't have to worry about getting the structure quite so firm. It's more just to get a nice pretty look. As you can see, we're getting a real feel of spring here. You'll notice that the hole is nearly all covered up, but I'm going to trim that back when we've finished, just so that the birds actually know that it is a nester. Okay, so now we'll pop some little daffodils in. Just trim them off so they're about 4 or 5 inches. And as I say, because these are soft and they're not going to last for very long, they don't even need to be pushed in very hard. Just sort of pop them in behind the twigs. And I think that looks great. Lovely spring wreath with a lovely variety of leaves, twigs, flowers, blossom, seed heads, and I think any birds looking for somewhere nice to nest would be absolutely delighted to move into there. Good luck with yours.